Never engage a professional who's going to think for you. They need to think with you. If you're buying a house, the valuer is going to come in to advise you on the value. Many times you'll ask, wasasudde meka? Billionaire mu. Ng'osinziira ku ki? Omwami kati omanyi omwami omukyala omanyi neighbor. A valuer is going to give you an expert opinion. The valuer gives you the market what? Value. Omupunta agenda confirminga nti ettaka weeriri ku ground. These are the boundaries. If there are issues of double titling, double plotting, the surveyor is going to advise you on that. The architect, the quantity surveyor, the structural engineer, they are going to come in to advise on the structure what? Integrity. Many times people buy houses, after 1 year, there's a crack from the top up to the bottom. And the first thing people are going to say, Jaja Rubale, witchcraft, bandoze. But did you do the necessary checks before diving inside there? Or is it actually witchcraft? For me, I'm a Christian. I don't believe in certain things. But before you blame the devil and witchcraft, let us go back to the basics. If you're buying land that is bare and you're going to build your own house, it has its advantages and disadvantages. If you're buying a house, it has its advantages and disadvantages. I'll go to the most obvious. You have control. Kyoyagala kumpi kyokola than buying what? A house. For as long as you are involved in the process. Naye bw'oba oli mulimi nga olimira ku ssimu. Enkuba yatonye, essebo yatonye. There's going to be a problem. You need to be there. You need to do it yourself. You still need to get these what? Professionals. Almost the same parameters, just slightly different. Life is one long continuous negotiation. To get a house, which is a very important asset or land, you have to negotiate. Wanoonyereza dda, so you have the background. Now you need to know your underlying purpose. What do I want out of this negotiation? Because out of the negotiation, tugenda muki? Mu contract. Byojja mu negotiation bigenda muki? Mu ndagaano. You must be sure about the owners, like she said. You must be sure about the amount. And when you're doing your inquiries, woba onoonyereza. Bannamateeka tugendera byamateeka. But if you want to go cultural, you can go. You go to a place, the house has been deserted. Mbwe waliyo abasezi. But the important point is to know the history. Why has this house been on the market for 10 years? Why have they marketed the house for what? For 10 years. So if you're negotiating with the owner, you have that at the back of your mind. Why is this person? You need to know why the person is selling the house. Are they selling the house because they have a problem? Are they selling the house because that is their nature of business? There are some people who are renowned fraudsters. So if you have decided to buy a house from a mufede, how do you go about that transaction? You need to be as careful as possible. That guides you. The other important thing in the negotiation is the purpose. Are you just getting a house for short term? No, this one, I think I'm going to get a promotion. So if you're buying a house that you're going to stay in for 2 years, how much should you spend on it? Someone talked about budgeting and planning. That guides you. So everything that you have out of that negotiation, you now take into the contract. The lawyers come in to draft for you the contract. And again, I'll quickly go to the basics. A good contract should refer to the law. A good contract should have the names of the parties. Nenini. A good contract should mention the price. If there are installments, you clearly indicate it. It should mention or indicate the size of the land. An agreement is very important because when you get a challenge, that document is going to save you. And the next part of the presentation is the most exciting one for me. You'll see why that agreement is going to help you. Now let us go to that part. And again, I'll start with some questions. If you're buying a house or land as husband and wife, who should be in the agreement? This is a very important aspect in marriage. Very important. Whether marriage in church, in the mosque, tradition, it is very, very important. If you have decided to settle down with someone as husband and wife, one, there has to be transparency. Two, there has to be clarity. If you're not transparent, there's going to be a problem, and you'll see why. On that agreement, or in that agreement, if you're husband and wife, it is safer for both of you to be registered there. In law, we have two principles: tenants in common and joint tenants. If they write two names on the title, and one of you dies, the surviving one takes the whole what? Property. Then for tenants in common, kuliko X ne Y, but as tenants in common, olusi tuteekako ne shares. Nti ono ayina 50%, ono ayina 30%. If one dies, estate yoli, the beneficiaries take over. If you just register two names without any extras or percentages or what, if one person dies, the surviving partner assumes ownership. For tenants in common, buli omu aba ayina share ye ng'eri distinct. Nti ono Deo ku side emu, ku side endala Jill. Deo ayina 50%, Jill ayina 50%. Bateekako neka entry ku kyapa. Tenants in common. Deo bw'aba afudde, but beneficiary in Luganda is what?
Bebaganyulwa.
Abo. But beneficiary ba Deo batwala share ye. That means omukyala Jill asigala zaki 50%. Katika ngende ku issue ya matrimonial property. Matrimonial home ne matrimonial property. You have bought this beautiful house. That is where you're staying. That is where the children are staying. That is a matrimonial home. Then we have matrimonial property. All the property that you acquire, either jointly or individually, all the property that you acquire after marriage is classified as matrimonial what? Property. But there are certain tests that we follow, which I'm going to go into. Now, all the property that you had before marriage, that is not matrimonial what? Property. Before I marry you, whatever I have is mine. You cannot come and claim and say, oba najja kufumba nfumbye nnyo eri ensonga semasonga. No, it is not matrimonial property. But the property that you acquire after marriage can be classified as matrimonial property, and it includes the matrimonial home. When you are buying property after marriage, you must register it in both what? Names. After what? The test is after marriage. You must register it in both names. If you had it before, that is yours. If you get married today and you acquire it tomorrow, you put it in both names with the necessary transparency and clarity, and you say, Deo, 50%. Jill, 50%. That is owned what? Jointly. Now the other scenario is where you buy jointly, but because of too much love, you decide to put it only in Deo's what? Name. That is a risk. Obufumbo buwoma. Bukolachi? Buwoma. But marriage also has its challenges. When mba mukyali mu honeymoon, baby buli kimu baby. Banaye baby. Afumba bulungi. Naye ki? Byonna biwoma. But when the problems start, entalo zikola ki? Awo. Kati okwewala ebyo byonna, have a proper agreement. Put the property in both names. You can even indicate the percentage share. Nti 30% over 50 ogiteekako. If you don't and the property is only registered in Dewo's name, embeera y'obudde bw'ekyukakyuka. Fire. So to avoid all that, one, involve professionals, negotiate properly, make the necessary inquiries, have the right what? Paperwork. It is very, very important. Because bwe biba tebikoze tugenda mu kooti. Part eddako is to guide you on what happens. Ensonga zeeyongerayo mu kooti, abalamuzi basalawo, and one test that they use is what was the financial contribution. We have cases that have been decided in court. What was not financial really, what was the contribution of either party ng'otandika okwewozaako. So to avoid all that, you need to be clear with each other. Clarity is very important, transparency is very important to avoid over-explaining. Waliwo omusango baagusalawo ba mu January, omukyala yafunamu kateni. Kateni mu nnyumba afumbye emyaka 20. Yafunamu kateni, omulamuzi n'asalawo ddayo mu nnyumba ogyeyo kateni z'okole ki ogende. Sex is not a determinant when we are determining issues of divorce. It's not. You need to be as clear as what? As possible. Ojja kuleetamu valuwa akugambe nti ettaka lino lya million 10. Okay? Pleader waali akikakasiza nti ettaka lya million 10. Naawe wooli munda muli. That's why I talked about clarity and transparency. Buli kimu tukiteeka mu musana. It has to be as clear as possible. Okkiriza nti omukyala yateekayo sente zonna. That is 100%. Unless you can prove nti wadde oli yateekayo million 10 ku ttaka, nze ku nnyumba kuzimba ennyumba nange nateekako million meka? Million 10. Still it comes back to the same thing. 50%, 50%. So we have you, omwami n'omukyala, then we have the professionals who will come in to guide. Together you come up with the percentage. Remember, you need to know the value that you have put in. Oli omuwadde sente z'omukaasha akugamba sikumanyi endagaano wagiforging. Okuteeka sente mu bank kikulu nnyo. It creates a trail of evidence. Kiyamba nnyo. Ekyokubiri, endagaano mugisayinize, bakuwadde transfer form. Make sure you transfer that land in your names immediately after. Transfer the land in your names and go to the ground and take possession. I know you don't like talking about death, but these are facts. That is why you have to have your affairs in order. Now I'm going to quickly talk about issues of wills. A will. A will is what?
Ekiramo.
Ekiramo. For whatever you own, you must mention in your what? In your will. The beneficiaries must be mentioned in the will. The people who are going to implement your wishes when you're dead, the executors, must be mentioned in the will. The will must be properly dated and witnessed. That's why you need to get a professional to guide you through and keep it properly. Do not keep your will with the people you don't trust. Because even wills are what? Are forged. I will repeat. Have a will. Ensure your properties are reflected there and all your beneficiaries. The other option is a company. Register a company. Bobo in a family nene and you see confusion. Wandisa company Deo Company Limited. Family yonna n'ogiteeka mu company eyo, ebyobugagga byonna n'obiteekamu. Buli omu n'omuwa share. Bw'oba bawadde 10%, that is the percentage they get from your what? Your estate. You get, trust is from the word to trust. Ofunayo abantu 2 3 oba 4, people you trust, who you know can help manage your affairs when you have died. These trustees are registered by way of a trust deed. Registering a Ministry of Lands. They can be your friends, they can be your relatives. Babeera ba manager. They don't own the property, but they help you. They can be from Sengas and Kojas. You know that my children will listen to these people. They register a deed and help you implement your wishes when you are dead. This doesn't mean that you don't trust your family, but it is to put your affairs in order. When people die, interesting things happen. People change. The person who has been very obedient becomes an animal suddenly. So you need to do this as carefully as what? As possible. A trustee is a manager or an administrator. They act on behalf of the interests of the estate. Okay? You have at least 2 or more people. They have a trust deed which is registered. You list for them the beneficiaries, ne properties or na. So they make sure they manage these things on behalf of the beneficiaries to avoid, of course, this is usually done in very organized families, but it is also done where we foresee problems. Who do they listen to? Tuina technology ya kamera zonna muziraba. Mu recording temutya record because olusi families zibeeramu ebyana n'abaana. You need to learn how to record these things. So that if someone comes up and says, nedda ekiraamo kifu, bamuteerako ka recording, nti ku lunaku saawa weezitiddeewo yalaama bw'ati. Now, the other option is, mu bulamu, in your life, make sure you distribute everything. Gifts. You distribute buli ky'olina, especially now this is done by the older years, the people in their eve 70s, 80s. Just distribute everything. Dewo muwadde kino. So that people know, don't wait to die. You can give away these things. You still include them in your will. You indicate that I gave Kamonkoli this, so that it is very clear. I want to emphasize a few things. The issue of knowing our why. We need to know our purpose. Why am I buying a home? Why am I building land? That is going to guide everything that you do. Look out for value. There has to be value for money. You must budget and plan. Look out for risk. For things that are not clear, don't go there. For example, I talked about due diligence. Do not buy land in a forest. You're not a monkey. Do not buy land in a wetland. My matrimonial home is going to be here. No, don't. Leave forests to the monkeys and the what? And the snakes. Thirdly, there has to be transparency and clarity. Bino bye mukweka kweka. I love the man so much. Naye omanyi sente z'ekikazi. Waliwo sente z'ekikazi n'ez'ekisajja. Mbadde ndowooza zonna sente. Waliwo ez'ekikazi. Abakazi batuunyana nnyo. But yeah. Anyway, ebyo bya Father Chibi. Number 4. Make sure you engage professionals. Abakugu kikulu nnyo. Naye ne mubakugu omwo muyina okwetegereza bulungi. Ne mubakugu ennaku zino tuyinamu abafere. Anti sebo ng'olabye nnyo bannaaye. Kubira kali ku mutima osirike.